Welcome back to my channel. My kids are playing in the other room, so if you hear noise in the background, I decided to sneak in here where it might be a little quieter because today we are talking about language arts. So if you've been following along with my series this month, we are going through all the things homeschooling, how it works at our house. I have 8 children and we follow a delight-directed learning approach, plus a few required subjects that I throw in for my children. And so we have kind of a combination. We've always been eclectic learners since the very beginning. And if you go back to the last few videos that I posted, you can see more about that journey and also get a look around at our home and how we have things set up. So today I'm going to be talking about language arts. I've put off making this video all morning because I've been thinking about what is language arts at our house and the evolution of it, because I feel like I tried really hard at one point in our homeschooling journey to make sure that I was teaching language arts, and I kind of regret that. I think I tried too hard and it just didn't need to be that difficult. And so I'm going to talk to you today about some of the things I've tried and liked, and also some of my regrets. So let's get started. Language arts is actually very easy to teach from a delight-directed approach. Language arts includes reading and writing, listening, auditory, speaking. Whenever I looked up language arts, because I had been trying to define that term for my homeschool logging that I have to do here, they even include viewing. I wrote this down because I couldn't believe it. Viewing and visual representation, which is more of like the artistic things that I would never think to lump into the category of language arts, but they did. If you go to the any official definition of what is language arts, it's all 6 of those things. So it really encompasses a lot. To me, it was just more about the words, the written words, and it's just beyond that. So things that I have done in the past, when my kids are small, around 4 or 5, when they really start expressing interest, we take them through this book. So I have a video that I took, probably it's been at least a year ago, that I did a video, and I will link that below, where I went in detail in how we use this book, how we progress them through, what happens if they kind of get stuck in the middle and they seem like they need something else. I go through all of that in that video. So I will not repeat that. I will link it below, but this is where we start. Once we finally get over the hump of through this book, however long it takes, and we move on to the next thing, I have a bunch. I've just collected random readers and things. If you saw my video yesterday where I went through all our bookshelves, you would have seen I have just different books I've collected that are very easy to read. I have Dick and Jane books, anything, even some of the Dr. Seuss are easier to read. Some of them get quite complex. But I just keep a stack of those so that when we're done with that, my goal for that child next is to continue spending 10 to 15 minutes a day reading out loud to me, because the more you practice, the better you get. And so that's kind of the next step. One thing I do not do with this book is I do not do the handwriting portion at the same time. I found that for my little ones, it's just too overwhelming to do a reading lesson and handwriting all at the same time. It starts out really easy at first, the reading portion, but before too long, it gets to where just getting through a lesson is enough, and then they're ready to go and play. So I do my handwriting completely separate and completely based on the child. I do not stress at all about handwriting. They do get it eventually. Some of my children were very good at writing and they wanted to do it very early. And some of my kids, it came a lot later, and it was a struggle of just that fine motor skill. So there is no reason to rush that skill. It will come. You can just play with your child. You can draw pictures with your child. Just let them go, and you will start to recognize when they're really interested in handwriting, which of course this writing is also included in your language arts. And when they get to that point, then embrace it and go for it, but make it fun. Don't make it a stress. Okay, what else? When my kids are past that book, past those really beginning readers, at some point, I also like to do McGuffeys with them. So this is the McGuffeys are old readers. I don't even remember. 1836 is when he wrote it. 1836. Wow, these have been around a long time. And they're just treasures for expanding your children's vocabulary and their reading skills because they were written in 1836. So I have the original set and the revised set. I like them for different reasons. Some of my kids weren't ready for an original set and they needed to do the revised. But I feel like the originals have a nice challenge. This is the original first reader. So it starts very simply. Here is John. There are Anne and Jane. So you can see it's kind of like that Dick and Jane kind of skill level. And I would have them do one lesson a day to me, and that would be their reading. So it starts out really short. By the time you're progressing through, you have, let's find halfway point in the book. Halfway point. Okay, what the animals say. The fly says, I fly in the air if the sun is hot. I sip out of the teacups. If I see a boy at tea, I sit on the rim of the cup and sip his tea. So it's all from the fly's perspective. So you can see it does progress in a very quick way, I feel like, but my kids have done well in these books. And this, the very last lesson in this first is goodbye. Now, my little readers, we have come to the end of the book, and I must bid you goodbye. Before we part, let me give you a little advice. So this is great for them to be up to this reading skill, you know, and little by little taking them through. I've been really pleased with those. So that's just kind of an easy, and you can get these from Amazon. I bought all of mine used off Amazon. They were very inexpensive when you buy them secondhand. And the second and third readers progress really quickly until by the end of the third reader, it's like there's some words that I didn't even know what they were. So, okay, that's an option if you're wanting to have it all in one book. Otherwise, other things you can do, I've had 2 readers out of my 5 kids. I'm working on my 6th child of teaching them to read. And the 5 that are already finished, I have some that just picked up reading like that so easily, no big deal. And others that it was a struggle and we had to keep working together for years. It didn't really start to click until 3rd or 4th grade, and that's okay. Everybody's different. And if we're going to be okay with those homeschooled kids that get things so early and we can brag about them, we have to also be okay with the other end of things, that some kids take longer to develop those skills. And the beauty of homeschooling is that they're allowed that spectrum. They're allowed to learn things early. They're allowed to learn things late, and it's okay. Because by the time they get to adulthood, if you keep working with them, it'll all work out. You don't have to worry about a child being on track with where you think they should be. It's all okay. But for those 2 kids that I've had that really struggled and I needed to help them a little bit more, the trick that I found is to read with them, literally with them, to make reading fun and enjoyable and not something that's a chore that they didn't want to do. So the child that I worked with last who was struggling, we went through a lot of Boxcar Children books together. I like these books because they have that mystery element that's very exciting for a child who's, you know, in that 9 or 10 or whatever age your child is needing that extra help. So they're very exciting, but the children are really well-mannered. I want to give my children some good examples because, you know, we need all the help we can get over here. So I do like the Boxcar Children for that reason. So what I would do with them is we'd sit down together and they would read one side of a page, and then I would read 2 sides of a page. And they'd read 1 and then I'd read 2. So it gives them a little bit of a break while we're reading. And it helps the story to kind of flow along faster, because I found with those kids that struggle that by the time they get to the end of a page, they're kind of like, wait, what did I just read? Because they were working so hard to actually read the words. So this kind of helps the story go along and be more engaging. Also, during this fun reading time with them, I do not make them labor to sound out words, because I'm trying to encourage that reading is fun and a joy. So if they are reading along, suddenly Violet jumped to her feet. Okay, around the corner and down the street. Well, let's say they didn't know this word repairing. They get to repairing. Or let's say they don't know every 5th word, you know, whatever it is. I just would say it in their ear, repairing. Oh, repairing. And then they'd go on. And I have found that after doing this for months or, years, however long you read aloud with your child, that they will start to memorize those words and they will start to just understand. The English language is complicated and there are a lot of things that we just simply have to memorize. And I found that technique works. And for those two children, it has helped push them from struggling, like they wouldn't be able to read this on their own, to after doing this for months, they're able to read it. So somehow it worked. Okay, so that's reading. What about the listening part of language arts? Read aloud to your children. And I'm not going to go into that at all because on the list of videos that are coming up for the month of May, read alouds is one of those. And we will be going fully into how to read aloud and ideas of what to read aloud. So we'll just skip over that right now. Spelling. Oh, we have to talk about it, don't we? I have some kids that, and I was one of these, that just seem to naturally take to spelling and understand it. But for the most of my kids, it's been more of a struggle. And I think you've probably found that to be true over at your house as well. And this is where I talked about having a little bit of regret looking back, and also that it will help me change how I go forward with my younger kids. I really felt like I had to work hard at the spelling. I went through the All About Spelling program with my oldest two, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. I recommend this program. If you feel like you want to sit down and work with a child on spelling, go ahead and buy it. It is laborious, and once I started adding a lot of kids, more and more responsibilities and things, I just thought this isn't working. I cannot sit here with every child and go through this laborious program. I need something else. And all of the while that I was doing this, I kept hearing and reading about the benefit of copy work, but I just felt like it wasn't enough. I thought certainly just copying what someone else has written can't replace a good curriculum. And this is where I believe I am completely wrong, that copy work is enough. The idea behind copy work is that you get a piece of literature, so something that someone else has written already, that is all correct grammatically, spelling, it's all laid out there of an example of a good piece of writing. And you get a piece of paper and literally copy it word for word. You get all the punctuation, you just copy it all out, and that's it. You're done with language arts for the day. You don't do any grammar, you don't do any spelling program, that's it. Darcy Isabella, I wonder if I could go back and find this video. It was an older video that she did that she talked about on her YouTube channel, how she only does copy work for her kids, and she's taken kids all the way through high school and beyond to be successful adults, and that's all she's done. And after I watched that video, the wheels kept turning, and I really think that it is enough. The way if you go back in history, the great artists started by copying paintings of masters. They would just make an exact copy of it. And for the great writers, they didn't have all this curriculum. All they had was another example. Sometimes they just had the Bible. That was the only book they had in their house. Or maybe another, few classics. But all they would do was be able to copy from that to see what was there and to reproduce it until they could start producing their own thoughts. And I just challenge you to think about how could you simplify language arts in your home. If it's a subject that is a little painful for you and your children, perhaps you just need to simplify it. So for my oldest child, that is the one where I kind of regret a little bit. She likes to write, like the physical action of writing. She enjoys that. She always had done copy work on her own, but I kept trying to push her through programs, thinking that was my duty as a homeschooling mom. I wish I would have just let her go and just let her copy. I know Darcy Isabella says she requires 1 page a day of copy work from her children. And when they're small, it's like the real big lined paper. And when they're in high school, it's the little college lined paper that they have to copy a page. I think Bella would have thrived on that when she was younger, and maybe that it would have been less painful, but you know, I like the more homeschool moms I talk to, the more I hear people saying, my poor first child that I overloaded with all of these things, you know, in my enthusiasm. And then the longer I get into homeschooling, the more I realize like, oh, okay, that was unnecessary. But you live and learn, and the Lord knows who to give us for our first children, who are the resilient ones that can handle us. So that being said, my second son does not like to write as in the handwriting. However, he does like to write as in the creative writing aspect. So for him, copy work would be not a pleasurable thing. I think if I had started from the beginning and gotten him in that routine when he was little, it probably would have been fine. But at this point now, it's not enjoyable for him to do copy work. And so with him, I do a couple different things. Because he likes to write, I let him loose on his own. He is currently typing on the computer a story and it's just every few weeks he'll just kind of get a bug to start sitting down and doing it again, and he'll spend a couple hours sitting there and writing that story. And because he's really proud of it and it's his own, he will ask me about punctuation. He will ask about sentence structure, not realizing that we're having an English dialogue about grammar. It's just that he wants to get it right. So that comes back to the benefit of that delight-directed learning, is that because he cares, he really is absorbing what I tell him instead of it just going in one ear and out the other. So that's the majority of what I have him do. And then every once in a while, because like I said, he is my child who currently, he's about to turn 12, so he's not, in high school yet, but he does seem like he wants to do college. That's on his goals. And so I know that writing is a huge part of that. And once he gets into high school age, we will work more on that writing. But even Darcy Isabella has things to say about that. She says don't stress yourself out, because what she found with her oldest, they worked so hard to learn how to write a paper. And then her oldest went into college, and she found that in a lot of ways it was a waste, because every college professor wanted things done their way, and it was different from the next college professor. So her daughter was having to learn what that professor wanted, and then go to the next class and learn what that one wanted. And all the years of high school where she and her mom tried to struggle through learning the proper way to write a paper was kind of irrelevant whenever she got down to it. So, there is that balance. However, I had bought a couple years ago the Institute for Excellence in Writing program. This is a writing program, like a teaching your children to write. And again, it's an excellent program, and it is also, somewhat labor intensive. So what I do is I pull this out every few weeks and do a short paper with Leo following this guide. However, one year, it was either last year or the year before, I got to listen to a talk. I went to a talk of the man who developed that program. And he said, you don't actually need my program to teach writing in this way, those were his words. He said it's very simple, and again, I would not have bought this program had I listened to his talk. Don't tell him that. No, because of the way that I'm using it, what he said is that the basis behind it is you find a piece of writing. So let's say the tortoise and the hare. Okay, how about the tortoise and the hare? We all know that kind of story. So you would read through the tortoise and the hare, and then you would take a piece of paper, and for every sentence or two, you would find 3 key words that kind of summed up that sentence. 3 key words that would remind you at a later time what was in that sentence. And you would write those 3 key words, or you could add in symbols. He always says symbols are free. So, let's say that the first sentence was, it was a sunny day and the tortoise was walking slowly down the road. So you could say, you could draw a sun. That could be your 3 thing to remind you sun. And then you could say, tortoise walked road. And that would be your quick notes that you took from that first sentence. Then you'd go on to the next sentence, and you'd do the same thing until you were done, and you had this page of notes that for each sentence or two, you had 3 words to describe that. Then you put it away, and the next day or whenever you get back to it, you get out your note sheet, not the story. You put the story away. You just get out your notes that you took and you rewrite the story in your own way based on those notes. That's it. That is his entire program broken down into one simple explanation. He said you can do it with any source text. That's what he calls the original story. Do any source text. Start really simple at first, of course, but that's it. He also said that asking children to write from their brain creatively to come up with something of their own thought while they're learning the process of writing is too much to ask them. And you end up with kids saying, I hate to write. That he says that the best thing to do is to have them model a piece of writing that is already completed. And the more they do it, the more confidence they will build until suddenly on their own, they'll be wanting to come up with their own writing. He also said, which has been so helpful for me, that you cannot help a child too much when it comes to writing. You cannot help them. He said, literally, in those first months, if it's painful for them, you can literally even write it for them while they tell you what to say. You cannot help them too much because he said what he's found in his many years of helping kids and parents learn how to write is that kids have this desire to do it themselves. And if you are doing it for them while they're sitting there, eventually they're going to be like, give me that pencil. I want to do this. I can do this. You're just equipping them until it becomes so second nature of how to write that they can grab a hold of that idea and do it themselves. And I actually can testify this in my own life. My dad was the one who really walked me through writing. We had never heard of this program or Andrew Pujo's ideas or anything, but it's really the way my dad helped me learn to be a good writer. He would sit there by me whenever I needed to write something. When I got into college, I still lived at home. And if I had a paper, he was the one who would sit there and help me gather my thoughts and help me get started and really just step by step walk with me as much as I needed all the way through it until now as an adult, I have no problem writing things because I saw it modeled and somebody was there holding my hand through the process. So it does work. Don't feel like you're doing too much for your child. You're not. It's okay. Just keep doing it. So the main benefit of that program and why I'm practicing that technique with my kids and with Leo specifically right now is because that is a very helpful habit to develop for when you get into college. It's basically note-taking. It's just that then you might be hearing lectures and need to quickly write things down, but it's that same idea and it's a good skill to have. When we do our history, which history, I will do a specific video on that next week. When we do history, we kind of do the same thing with all of my kids who are able to write. After we're done, we'll pick something from that chapter to write about, and I will show you in that video how we do it. But it's kind of along the same line that I help them get started. So I won't go into all that today, or this video is going to be an hour long. The other thing that I have done with just Belle and Leo are the only ones that I've done it with so far. I think they were 5th and 6th grade when we started this last year, was the Fix-It Grammar program. This is another one that's produced by that same IEW. We've only done book 1. We're not quite done with book 1 actually because we're going slowly through it. But the idea behind this is just to practice grammar in very small doses each day. So it only takes them like 15 minutes to do their grammar for that day. And I have a video where I went completely through how we do that, and so I can link that video below. A friend of mine was telling me as you move up in the Fix-It Grammar books that it starts getting a lot more complex, and she ended up setting it aside and choosing something different. So I can't speak for all the levels. Whoa! I can't speak for all the levels, but for level 1, it's been good, I think, for my kids. One other thing that we started doing this year, and we do on and off, we'll do a few weeks and then I'll give them a break, is 1 spelling word a day. I pay attention to words that my kids kind of stumble on, that are hard for them, and we will do 1 spelling word a day. So I'll put 1 spelling word on my whiteboard for my older kids and 1 spelling word for my younger set. And anybody who's wanting to learn cursive or of an appropriate age for that. I write it in cursive actually. So then they just copy that word out like 5 to 10 times. They'll just copy it out in cursive or in print for my 6-year-old, and that's it. That's all they do for spelling that day. And I found that repetition again just helps a positive reinforcement in their mind to kind of put it in there a little bit while also getting some cursive practice as well. That's kind of like the sum of things for our language arts. I know it does sound like a lot, but really it's just a small portion of your day. And I think, again, like so many other things, the beauty of it is if you're doing a little bit each day with words, auditory and the written word, it really adds up over time to someone who's not burnt out on the language arts topics, but has enough information to kind of take hold of it and go from there. So next week, we're going to be going through other subjects. I think I don't have the prompt paper here with me, but I'll list it below. It's things like history, science, math might be next week. There's just one for each day. I've been following the prompts that are part of the Instagram Homeschoolers Photo Challenge by the account Intentional Homeschooling. All of that information is in my description box. And so if you're not following me on Instagram, be sure to go follow me over there because that's where I share photos from our life and a little bit more about all of these things. And also, it's been really exciting seeing a lot of you come and join us who are new here. I think we had like 50 subscribers join just in the past couple days since I started this. So that's really fun. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that and turn on that bell notification so you don't miss any of these videos. We will be posting them every day of the weekday through the month of May, all about homeschooling. I will see you guys on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend and a happy Mother's Day to all you wonderful moms. What a gift you are to your children. Just that you care so much to do what you can to help their education and help them grow into becoming amazing, well-rounded adults. So have a blessed Mother's Day, and I will see you guys on Monday. Thank you.